not every finance person is personal finance savvy. It's
Right.
really just, I think, the background coming from like, growing up again, that first generation feel and everything taught me that not everything's handed to you. And for me, having like having a good savings and everything means peace of mind. So for me, that's really important.
I'm not perfect, and I don't have all the answers. I don't know anyone who is. In fact, there's always someone who knows more than you about a specific topic. This is a space where conversations and discussions can be had that will help build an understanding of folks from all walks of life. Finally, I hope you, the listener, becomes more knowledgeable about a topic or subject than you did before, whether it be business, social and political issues, or any other topics that may come up. This is More to Know, and I'm Chris Moore. Stephanie, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I know you, of course, but can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. So, I went to school with Chris, so that's how I know Chris. Um, but I studied finance and economics, and then I graduated back in 2018, and I landed a job at Leidos, which is a government contractor, and I'm a financial analyst with them. So that's kind of more like my professional side.
Can you break it down? Tell us what it means.
Definitely. So a financial analyst really depends on which industry you're in. A banking financial analyst is completely different from, government contracting or the retail world. So it really depends on which industry you're in. For me in government contracting, there's different areas. So I started off as a program finance analyst. And what that means is that you're assigned a contract or a portfolio of contracts, and you're the business partner to the program managers. You're in charge of overseeing the financial status of those contracts, and making sure that the program managers are informed of what's happening, the invoicing, working with the customers, just making sure that we're basically going to along with our budget and not going over budget, because we want to make profit, of course. Now afterwards, after being there for about 9 to 10 months, I actually transferred over to being a financial planning analysis analyst. And that's a completely different ball game. So what that is really just creating the budgets. So we call them our forecasts. And that sounds really fancy. But what it really is just making your budgets. So we do quarterly ones, we do annually ones. So we actually just finished our forecast for next year. So we do that. And then I also do other things like, overseeing our overhead budgets, making sure that we are not overrunning those. So that's kind of the name of the game in what I do, just making sure we're not going over budget. But it does include a lot of Excel, a lot of analysis, learning the systems, learning how to research stuff, and blah, blah, blah. It's a lot of fancy terms for Excel, looking at numbers and keeping track of things.
That is awesome because it's like Excel just gives me a headache, but I know it's beneficial. And
It's my
seeing
best
you,
friend. I love Excel.
I was gonna say that's like Steph's like one of her specialties. Like Excel is her thing, and I applaud you for that. That's amazing.
Thank you. And I didn't even know anything about, like, I knew your basics. Like, when we were in school, we took the business something.
CLST thing, whatever.
Yeah, you learn like the basics of Excel, but when I got into my job, I really was a little overwhelmed doing VLOOKUPs, doing pivot tables, doing all that type of stuff. And I had no clue. And I just remember my manager was so nice, and he's actually doing his MBA right now. And he had this assignment for Excel, and he was like, hey, why don't you just practice on this? So I really learned everything throughout my job. I was not an Excel guru at the beginning at all. I had no clue what was going on. So
Right. So you had a lot of on-the-job training.
yeah, definitely.
Nice. Did you have any like internships that helped put you where you were now in terms of career-wise?
Definitely. So I just knew, like, my background is, first generation. My parents immigrated here from El Salvador. And I remember walking into kind of like our counselor's, like my professor's office, because he would help us each year, like with like making our schedule for the next year. And I remember he was like, oh, if you want to like get a job after college, you should get an internship. And I was like, okay, cool. How do I do that? You know what I mean? He was like, it's all about connections, like, who do you know? Like, reach into that network. And I was like, everybody I know works in construction or cleaning. I don't know anybody, so
Mm,
that was coming from being first generation and everything. That was such like a daunting task for me. So thankfully at what I did, because I didn't have the internship experience, I got really involved in school. I would go to all the club meetings, try to do everything to like pack up my resume. And then thankfully at our school, we had this really awesome program that they helped place you into internships. So I applied to that, got in, and then I got an internship in New York City with Ross Stores. And that actually really helped me get the job that I have today, because I was looking at the recruiting information just because I have like, and I looked at the previous years and I saw the notes, and they like had noted my previous internship, and they were like, oh, she did like
wow.
location planning. Let's like, she'll be a good fit here. So do your internships. But yeah, it's not an easy task like when you come from the background that I have, because it's kind of hard to network, and you don't have those connections. You're competing against the Ivy Leagues, the kids in fraternities and sororities that have those connections. They're big and they're whatever you call them, and all that. So you really kind of just have to try to get the resources that you can get to get what you don't have that easy access to.
Nice, you did it. So you were at Ross. You weren't at like the retail stores. You were like corporate for Ross.
Yeah, yeah. So I was in the corporate offices. It was a couple blocks from Times Square, so that was fun. We would eat lunch in the streets. But yeah, we were in the corporate offices. I was doing location planning, so kind of what I do now. But it's like planning for their inventory, and Ross has hundreds of stores across the nation, so they have to plan them where the inventory is going. So it was a really good experience.
It's stuff you don't really think about, like when you think of like retail stores. Like wow, like there's a plan for every single thing, and that's how they know when things go missing, when things aren't being done right, when merchandise isn't being sold. That's really interesting.
Exactly. And like stores like Target, Walmart, they plan like we would plan just based off of location. They plan inside the store each spot. Like on this shelf, this product is going to go there.
I did hear that like there's a psychology why certain sections are in spots and why it, you're more likely to spend money on if you go to the left or the right. So it's interesting. There's
Yeah.
science in everything, psychology, I guess, in everything.
Yeah, definitely.
On that note, so a financial analyst, I don't want to assume, but would you say you're pretty good at budgeting and making spreadsheets for like yourself?
Yeah. I think I don't do like personal spreadsheets. I just kind of do it all in my head. But it's to each their own. Each person has their own method, but I think that coming from that finance background, I'm very fine like personal finance oriented, because the way that companies run their finances, budgeting and all that, and forecasting and all that, I do that like in my head. Okay, by the end of the year, this is my target of how much I want to have saved.
Mm,
And then also, not every finance person is personal finance savvy. It's
right.
really just, I think, the background coming from like, growing up again, that first generation feel and everything taught me that not everything's handed to you. And for me, having like having a good savings and everything means peace of mind. So for me, that's really important.
That's deep. Most people want to have money, and most people want to save their money if they
Hmm.
can. What would you
Hmm.
say to someone that's just starting out and they really want to save and they have money coming in, they may have gotten their first job and they really want to start budgeting? What's the first thing you would say and tell them to do?
I would say the first thing is to make that decision that you are going to budget. That's the hardest thing. Coming out of college, I'm not going to lie. I remember I got my bonus money from my first job. I went and spent it on a vacation. And looking back, it was a good experience and everything, but should I have done that? Probably not, but that's totally fine. But what I'm saying is that you need to decide, hey, I want to save and this is my goal. Make it attainable, like do makeup numbers. If you make $1,000 a month, you're not going to save $999. You still have to live a life.
Right.
But what I say, a lot of people are like, oh, I can only save $50 a month, so there's no point. It doesn't matter as long as you start. The whole thing is that you really just need to start. It doesn't matter if it's $50, $25, $100, whatever. But I think the biggest thing is starting, and especially for college students coming out, don't go and buy yourself a BMW just because you can. That's stupid. At the end of the day, that car is going to lose value. Like try to save up your money so that one day you can either buy yourself a house or put in your money into a Roth IRA or your 401k. Take advantage of those things that your company offers you. If they're doing that match, let's say they match 5% of your of your salary, put in the other 5% so you can get the free 5%, like that's free money. I know companies also offer stock programs where they'll give you a discount on stocks, like don't pass up on that. I know my first year I passed up on that. I was like, I don't know. I don't believe in it too much. But I remember my company, I think it was like at $60 and now it's at $100 and I kicked myself. I'm like, why didn't I do that? So my first thing would be to just kind of make that decision to do it. Make it attainable, and don't try to stunt on everybody and be like, look at my BMW, look at this and that I have. For me, what's been awesome is me being able to save. And now, like that first year, I really didn't spend money. I was saving everything. And now I'm in a good spot where if I want to go buy myself something nice, I don't feel bad about it because I know I still have.
Right, get that BMW.
Okay, not yet. I want a Tesla, but not yet.
Oh, okay, get the Tesla. So you said two really important terms that I want you to just break down for everyone, because I know what that means, but I want our audience to know what it means.
Yeah.
Tell everybody what a Roth IRA is.
Okay, so the Roth IRA is basically there's two different accounts. There's many, but you can get a Roth IRA or you can get a 401k. The big difference is, do you want a tax break now or do you want a tax break later in the future? So the 401k, what it does, it minimizes the amount of money that, like, let's say you make $100, you're going to pay taxes on that $100, So if you bring it down, let's say you give $50 to your 401k, then you're only going to pay taxes on the $50 that's left over. So it's a tax break now. If you put in $100 in a Roth IRA, you already pay taxes. So it's after you pay taxes. And then in the future, that money and any money that any investment returns that money makes, you're not going to get taxed on in the future. So it really depends on just like what you want. But yeah, it's basically it's a savings account that the Roth IRA is a savings account that if you put money in it, all the earnings in the future are not going to get taxed. So it's kind of like tax-free money, which is cool. But remember, there's a lot of more intricate things that you could get really into. But basically, it's just like a savings account. But you have to remember, once you put the money in, it's not getting invested. You have to go and buy the funds, the index funds, whatever.
You have to do the work, essentially.
Yeah, like you have to go buy the investments. It's like a bank account. Like you put money in your bank account, but it doesn't mean it's invested. You need to go do that. So
nice, thank you. That was a quick and simple breakdown. That was good. That was good. Smooth, especially for on the spot. That was really good.
Yeah, I was like, let me remember.
You talked about investing in stocks. What are your thoughts on like investing and investing at a young age, and even a lot of people use Robinhood, and if you feel like going into it like cryptocurrency, what are your thoughts on that?
So I will not say that I'm an expert by any means. I am not like a certified professional or anything, but what I would say is do get started when younger, because the younger you start, the more time your money has to compound and to gain like either interest or gain returns. So if you are investing younger, then it's better than if you start investing when you're 40 years old. But at the same time, I would say be educated. Trust me, I love watching all the TikToks where people are like, oh my God, buy this stock and tomorrow it's going to double. The stock market is not somewhere that you can gamble. You have to make educated guesses. Just like, it's like this. Somebody said it like this. If you buy a house, you're not planning on selling that house in 5 days, are you? So when you're buying stocks, you shouldn't just be thinking, oh, I'm going to sell it tomorrow because the hype says it's going to double tomorrow. Like that's not, right now there's a lot of, like it's in the news where like a lot of these retail investors are kind of pushing up the prices on the stocks, but that's eventually, I can't say, but that eventually could burst. You know what I mean? My suggestion would be really to buy into index funds. If you're not super educated, this is the thing, when you're buying a stock, you're literally buying a piece of that company. So let's just say company A is performing terribly. They don't have a good leadership in place and all these X, Y, and Z things. But just because you're not very educated, you think, oh, company A is super popular, I should buy them. If a house was in a bad area, had plumbing issues, and all that X, Y, and Z stuff, why would you buy that house? You wouldn't, right? So why are you going to go buy that stock? You're just buying it because everybody else says it's cool. And the problem is that a lot of these retail investors don't know how to actually read the financial statements, see how much debt these companies have. Like, you don't know. So if you're not willing to put in that work to actually research each company and see if it's a good buy, then I don't think that you should be buying individual stocks. You can. I do sometimes, like I'll buy some, but I buy them with the long-term mindset. Basically what I'm saying, if you don't have a lot of education right now on stocks and everything, then I would suggest start off with index funds, ETFs, things that are the broad market. It buys the broad market. But if you have the time to really research things, then go ahead. It's all power to you. But I'm just saying, for most people who probably don't have the time, I only buy index funds and stuff like that because I don't have the time to be researching all that stuff. So be careful.
Be careful. Another great breakdown. That was really insightful too.
One last thing that I
Go
want to say
ahead. Go
about
ahead.
that,
Yes,
because I'm
please,
passionate
please.
about this.
Go ahead. Yes.
One thing people love to say, oh my God, yesterday I just made $10,000 shorting a stock, which is a very risky thing to do. And I say, okay, that's great. And then ask them this, what's the biggest loss you've made? Because everybody loves to tell you how much they made in those big
Yes,
wins.
true.
I remember I asked one person, I said, oh, what's the biggest loss? And he was like, oh, I lost like 10,000 the other day. And I'm like, see, so everybody loves to, apparently everybody's freaking the guy from the Wall Street. What's that movie called?
Wolf of Wall Street.
Everybody's the Wolf of Wall Street today, but you got to be
But
careful.
remember how his story not ends, but remember the middle of that story.
Exactly. So you got to be careful. Just educate yourself before you get into the hype. That's it.
Nice. Thank you, Steph. So Stephanie, you also have a wealth of knowledge in the real estate world. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you know in terms of real estate?
Yeah, definitely. So after I graduated college, I got my real estate license, and I practiced for about 2 years. And then after like this right now, I'm just trying to focus like more on my job, because don't let people lie to you and say, oh, you can be a realtor part-time. Yeah, you can if you want to grind all day and night. But I personally I think my mental health is more like important.
Right.
So I actually put it on referral status. Like, I'm still licensed. I just, instead of me doing the deals, I can refer it out to other realtors. So basically buying a house, doing investing that way is a great way to really gain wealth. I've been able to see, just through family where, they're in a really good position because they had so many rentals and all this and whatever. But I will say, just be careful, especially the 2008 thing really, I know now there's a lot of regulation on the loans and stuff like that, but people, again, are not educated, and it's not their fault, like our school
Oh, you mean the
system.
housing crash?
Yeah, like the housing
Right.
crash.
All right.
What I'm talking about, like, people aren't educated on how loans work,
Right.
The first step, even before you go buy a house, the realtor is going to tell you, oh, go to a loan officer and get pre-approved. And people are like, what's a loan officer? What's pre-approved? What does that mean? So if you're able to even watch YouTube videos, research about what really goes into the buying process, all the extra fees that you're going to be paying, what type of loan you're getting, make sure that you're not getting some crap loan. I would recommend conventional loan all the way, but again, I know not everybody can qualify for that, but I would say just get educated about the process, because a lot of people just don't know what's going on when they go through it, and it can be a little overwhelming. So right now, really, what's called interest rates are really low, which is awesome. I personally think it's great if you want to refinance, because, let's say your interest rate was really high. I would not recommend if you refinance and take out money out, like take a loan off of your equity. Don't do it. It might seem really attractive to take out $50,000 and go buy yourself a nice car. I had a client that I sold her a house. Her house would have been paid off when we sold it, but they took out big loans just to do like, to renovate or to do this or to do that. And then later on in life, people are like, oh my God, why did I do that? So Buying a house right now, I wouldn't say it's bad, but just be weary. Everybody's rushing to buy a house right now. And right now, it's just so, we don't know what's going to happen. Like, yeah, the world is getting back to a little bit normal, but a lot of people did get laid off. Are people going to be all selling their houses at the same time? I would say, and I remember somebody I know very well who was really like business savvy. They told me, they were like, save up your money, wait a year, let's see what happens. But right now, people are rushing. My cousin actually just purchased a home in the area. And again, it depends on your market. Every market is different. But she just purchased a home and she was saying it was so hard to buy a home. You would think right now, coronavirus, unemployment rate, people can't buy houses. No, she said she was getting outbid. People were doing cash offers. I know somebody else who just purchased a home in Florida. They were getting outbidded, cash offers. Like people are going crazy.
Wow.
But we don't know how long this is going to be fueled, and the prices are so high right now, especially in the area that I am in. So I would say just watch and see what happens.
I hear different things from different people, oh, the housing prices are so low, this is the time to buy. I hear, and I guess it depends on the area you're in, but that's interesting.
I think it's all a balance because look, our prices are high, but our rates are low. Back then, the rates were a little higher and the prices were low. So it's kind of, like people who live in New York say, "Oh, we get paid so much money in New York City." Yeah, but your cost of living is so high, So it's all relative. It's all a mind game.
I'm learning so much right now. I love this.
I'm kind of very passionate about it.
No, that's good. I love that. That's good.
I'll just add this thing. I'm very passionate about it just because I know in my community, especially, the Latino community, when they come to this country, a lot of the people who come here in their countries were very poor. So when they come here and they start to earn, imagine just kind of like a little statistic. In El Salvador, the minimum wage average for a month is $300. Okay. For
Wow.
a month. Okay.
Wow.
So when they come here and they're earning $3,000 a month, 4,000, whatever they're earning, for them, they go crazy because they're like, oh my God, look at all this money. So they get so swept in. I've had clients where they wanted to buy a house and I told them, hey, I highly don't recommend it because if you don't have a social security number, if you're not a citizen, then your rate is 7-8%. Like right now the rates are 2.5,
Wow.
3. So their rates are like double or triple. I don't know, do the math. And I remember telling that client, hey, I really don't recommend that you do this. Your interest is going to be crazy. Like maybe you should wait a little. And they get mad at me, they're like, no, well, you don't want me to get a house. And I'm like, no, I'm just trying to give you best advice. A lot of my community in 2008, they didn't get scammed, but they basically got scammed where these loan officers were like, hey, do this adjustable rate loan and all this stuff. And people are just not educated. And that's really why I was so passionate about real estate and wanting to get into it, because I wanted to help my community to really understand.
What are some ways, and I mean, you've already explained a few, but what are some ways you enjoy or you like to give back, or you like to give back if you can, or you plan on giving back?
Yeah. So right now, something especially like at work, um, with everything that was going on this year, they really wanted to make more of an emphasis of diversity, inclusion. And so, I kind of did volunteer and say, hey, I'll take that up, because when I interviewed in the room, maybe two other people, there was probably like 30 interviewees and there's probably 3 other people of color in the room. So it's like, even at work, I want to be able to make that difference and say, hey, if you need help, I'm there. I have a friend who's trying to set up like where we want to set up like a tutoring for people in our church, like the kids, because a lot of the kids, their
Nice.
parents have to work at night. The kids go to public schools and don't have all the resources, or their parents don't even speak English. you know a lot of them, their parents, I remember growing up
Wow.
as a kid, my mom didn't understand my homework, because she couldn't read it. So for me, just, I think those are ways that we can give back. Just kind of being that example that, hey, we don't have to end up just working at McDonald's. Not saying that that's bad, it's a great
Right.
job.
I know
But
what you mean.
what I'm saying is that we do have these boundaries and we don't have the connections, and some people in my community don't have the resources. But if we work hard enough, just being kind of, I feel like being a role model to the next generation, being like, hey, we made it, you guys can make it too. and trying to be that, if one day one of them says, hey, internship opportunity or something, I'm more than happy to help anybody,
Right. Like you were helped. It's like,
exactly. So I think that those are ways that I can like give back to my community.
You're definitely off to a great start. Stephanie, thank you so much again for joining us. I'm just going to end with just 3 rapid fire questions. What's your favorite place to visit? Where was your favorite vacation or place to visit?
I would say El Salvador, just because I get to see my family.
Nice. Okay. Question number 2. What's a surprising fact about you that not many people know?
Well, I was on the crew team, so if you want to look me up, I was a college athlete. So for like 2 seconds, I had to pay to be on the team though, but that's okay.
Nice. Student athlete.
Yeah. Woohoo.
All right. And my final question is going to be, what's one song that you know front to back and you would be able to like do great in karaoke?
Surprisingly, the Eminem song, what's it called? The one that's like, Haley, no sé qué.
Oh,
You know which one I'm talking about.
he's like Mockingbird, I think.
No, the other one. Clearly, I don't know it front to back.
It's like, I know it front and back. I just don't know the title.
Haley, I know you miss your mom, and I know you miss your dad. It's that one. I'm really bad with songs.
It's not Mockingbird?
No, that's not Mockingbird. Is
Eminem, Haley.
No, Mockingbird is the one that's like, he got his kids like Christmas presents, and they stole them. Wait, is it Mockingbird?
It is. I told you.
I don't know song names. Never mind. I'm more confused. I'm bad at music.
So it is Mockingbird.
It is.
Okay. Steph is great with the financial tips, great with the real estate tips, but just don't ask her any music questions.
Just don't ask me anything about pop culture. I am not your girl.
I appreciate you for dropping some knowledge. Definitely hope to have you back on. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Wave to the invisible fans. Take care. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of More to Know. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes.